Chelsea have got one more loan move that we can make this window, and what do we do with it? Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And today we're talking about what we're going to do with that last loan spot right now. More specifically, we're going to be talking about Nicolas Jackson. There are only like 4 days left in the window. We've got lots of outs and hopefully a couple of ins left to make. And let's talk about how we're going to handle it. But guys, before we get into that, if you are enjoying the content and would like to see more, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Right, so the news pertaining to Nicolas Jackson today, and a little bit yesterday, actually, to be honest, we've all heard that Bayern Munich are currently having a conversation with Chelsea about Nicolas Jackson. And what has been proposed from Bayern Munich's side is a loan with an obligation to buy. Now, back in the day, I loved an obligation to buy, right? Because you're like, okay, yeah, of course, you're definitely going to have to buy him. But after what we've just done with the Jadon Sancho thing, where there was a little get-out clause where we could send him back for 5 mil, that obligation maybe isn't quite as strictly an obligation as it used to be, right? The main thing that doesn't really work for me, for the club, for anyone really, is sending Nicolas Jackson out on loan. I think it's just a bad idea, man. I don't think it works really for... Maybe it works for him if he gets game time, but it doesn't really work for us at all. And the reason for that is we've only got one more loan spot left, and Nicolas Jackson is, I think, by far and away our most valuable asset that we have left to make some money out of. So we all know that the reason that the Xavi Simons deal hasn't gone through, and maybe the reason the Fermin Lopez deal doesn't happen instantly, is because we need to sell players, right? Christopher Nkunku has been the purported, reason for that, but at the end of the day, we're not going to make that much money out of him. And since the start of the window, we've been talking about trying to sell Jackson for £100 million. Now, don't get me wrong, I never thought he was worth that. But to go from selling him for £100 million to a loan deal is just kind of preposterous, isn't it? For me specifically. So, like I say, man, the problem with this is we've only got one spot left available to send a loan player out, and then that's our 15 max capped out. 3 of those are at Strasbourg. Loads of other players have gone to loads of other places, and Nicolas Jackson is the only one we've got left that we can actually get a loan for. Now, the other issue with this is supposedly Aston Villa want him on loan as well. Everyone wants Nicolas Jackson on loan. We're getting towards the end of the window, and you're starting to see what people are willing to do, right? And it looks like no one's willing to actually pay up for Nicolas Jackson. So the problem with that, in essence, is Nicolas Jackson is not only the most valuable player we've got left that we could sell or do something with, he's probably also the only one really that we've got left that we're looking to sell that we would be able to reintegrate into the team, right? So if we look at the bomb squad, right, the remaining names in the bomb squad, obviously we've just got rid of Carney Chukwuemeka, so that's one less, but there is still Raheem Sterling, Ben Chilwell, Christopher Nkunku. Do you know what I mean? These are the 3 big names that we absolutely need to do something with. And maybe Sterling is by far and away the worst one. I would say Sterling and Chilwell were the 2 mains that it is a bit of a pain that we're not able to get rid of. Christopher Nkunku and Nicolas Jackson. Nicolas Jackson, I think, could be reintegrated into the team, right? One way or the other. Maybe he's not super happy about it because he's not going to get as much game time as he's been getting, but he's probably the most useful one to keep around. Christopher Nkunku doesn't look like there's really a spot for him in tactically in the team. Do you know what I mean? Just looking at the positions and stuff we've got. And I guess you could argue the same about Ben Chilwell. Raheem Sterling just needs to go, but the issue with him is the wages. So if we loan Nicolas Jackson to a Bayern Munich or an Aston Villa, then there's no more loans. That's it. We're done. Do you know what I mean? So what we've then got is Raheem Sterling, who we're going to have to absolutely try and sell. Otherwise, he's just going to soak up 300k a week on the bench and not play. Christopher Nkunku, who I still think we could get a sale for, and I think it will be low. I think that if, he seems like the prime candidate. Him or Raheem Sterling seem like the prime candidates for a loan, really. No one wants to buy Raheem Sterling, so I think he's probably going to be the one that we try and use that loan spot for. Christopher Nkunku could be reintegrated to the team. I have seen some little rumblings about trying to reintegrate Ben Chilwell into the team as well. So Raheem Sterling is the elephant in the room as far as squad costs and bloat and all that kind of thing are concerned. He, out of the 4 bomb squad players, he's the only one that absolutely just will not get into the team at all, I think, personally. Tell me what you think about that in the comments, actually. Do you think that Raheem Sterling could get minutes, is more likely to get minutes than Nkunku, Jackson, or Chilwell if we were to keep them. Coventry have, apparently Frank Lampard's Coventry have shown interest in Chilwell, but they're not going to be able to afford his wages, and we'd have to take absolutely zero money for him, do you know what I mean? Because they're not exactly minted. Christopher Nkunku has been attracting interest from the likes of Bayern Munich as well, and also from the likes of Aston Villa, but no one wants to pay for him. Nicolas Jackson is easily the most valuable one we've got, but again, no one's really looking to pay the price we're asking for him. But if we would lower that to like 50, 60 mil, then I think we might get something. And if we really want him out, then that's what we should do. Raheem Sterling, like I said, he's the absolute elephant in the room. He's recently declined the move to Besiktas in Turkey. He said, nope, don't want to go to Turkey, absolutely want to stay in London. And he's got the power to do that, man. He's on a contract. Do you know what I mean? He's on a contract and he's willing to fulfill the terms of that contract. And that is no one's fault but the club's. Technically Todd Bowley's, because he was a Todd Bowley signing in the first season, wasn't he? So yeah, you'd have to think, if we've got one loan spot left out of the 4 players that we've got in the bomb squad, Raheem Sterling feels like the one that would be the best one to get out. So as far as Jackson goes, my thoughts, right, this isn't news I've seen or anything. This is just speculative analysis from my crazy brain trying to figure out how we deal with this situation. Jackson could be reintegrated back into the team. What we've just seen in the West Ham game with Cole Palmer pulling up injured is João Pedro can play in that number 10 role, and he can play there very, very well. So we've already got a player, and obviously there's Esteval Willian as another backup as well. Do you know what I mean? We've got Reggie Walsh, Genesis Antwi that can play that Tyreque George role if Tyreek George does end up getting sold. I'll get onto that in a little bit. But yeah, to me, it just seems to make the most sense out of all of those players that Jackson's the most valuable in terms of money, but probably the most valuable to the team out of those as well. So all of a sudden then what you get is Jackson and Delap, who are going to play striker, with João Pedro, who can play there in certain games at certain times as well. João Pedro can become that auxiliary / second number 10. And all of a sudden, then do you even need to go out and buy a Xavi Simons or a Fermin Lopez? Do you know what I mean? If you've got João Pedro and you're saying you're going to play this spot, in and alongside Cole Palmer, as well as getting minutes as a striker, do we even need to go out for a Xavi Simons and spend 70 mil or whatever? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's just naturally how it feels to me, man. It's like, I can't see, Ben Chilwell, we had a chat about it last night on a 4-hour stream I did with the Blue Lounge behind the dugouts and not Worldwide Shell, sorry, Blue Clouds Media. And yeah, one of the little chats we had is maybe there's some sort of option there for Ben Chilwell to be integrated, to be, like when Cucurella plays the left of the back 3 and does the outward byliney kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So what Ben Chilwell isn't is like an inverting midfielder, or, he can't do any of that, absolutely. But not a terrible defender. And he's obviously pretty good at the byline stuff. If we do have number 10 or a left, you put João Pedro on the left, for instance, and then he can drift inside and you've still got someone covering that left side, haven't you? So maybe there's options there to reintegrate Chilwell into the team. Christopher Nkunku, I think, would just be kind of remain in the bomb squad, but I do think he'd get occasional minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like in cup games and being brought on in a subs, and you're always one injury away from a crisis, and having Christopher Nkunku wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But what do you do with Raheem Sterling, man? Do you know what I mean? Raheem Sterling, he's not going to get in over Pedro Neto. He's not going to get any time over Esteval Willian. He's not going to get any time over Jamie Gittins. And if we bring in Alejandro Garnacho, he's not going to get any time over him either. He's absolutely not a central attacking midfielder. He can't play up top because it's just never really. I know he did a little bit for Man City, but obviously that was a really specific system, wasn't it? And I don't think he's got the legs or the ability to play that anymore. So for me, out of the 4 bomb squad guys that we're looking at, Raheem Sterling just seems like if you're going to loan someone and we've only got one spot left, then he's the one. You'll get that. It's not going to, it's going to be like it was with Arsenal, isn't it? We'll have to loan him out and then subsidise up to 2/3, if not half of his wages, if we're lucky. But yeah, then all of a sudden, you've got that little bit more space. He's not hanging around the changing rooms or whatever. You do have a little bit more wiggle room in your budgetary stuff. And hopefully we can just get to a point where his value naturally goes down so much because of amortization and how players' values drop. And then someone will come and pick him up, or he'll take less wages or whatever. He wants to go to Fulham, right? He wants to stay in London. He wants to go to Fulham. So maybe we loan him to Fulham. They pay 100k of his wages, 150k. We pay the other 200, 150k and kind of be done with it. But if we loan Jackson to Munich or Aston Villa, then we can't do that. And no one's going to come in and buy Raheem Sterling, man. If anyone was going to come in and buy Raheem Sterling, I feel like they'd have done it already. I don't think any club is going to be desperate enough on the last day to spend, 15, 20 mil up front and 300k a week on Raheem Sterling because they desperately need an attacker who could barely get into the Arsenal team last year and fell out of favour at Chelsea the year before. When, you know what I mean? And we finished 12th with him in the squad. And it's just, Raheem Sterling's stock has just been going down and down and down and down. And he could be a valuable asset because of his experience and ability to a team like Fulham, as Willian was, right? When Willian went there and he played pretty well for them. And to me, made to feel important again. And I mean, maybe that brings something else out of him. But as far as it goes in the Chelsea team, we've just got so many options in that specific position that he plays. Like I say, Ben Chilwell, maybe there's a conversation there because our centre-back crisis dictates that, although I don't love the idea at all, potentially Yorel Hato gets time in that centre-back role. And to do that centre-back cover as well as the left-back cover. Maybe Ben Chilwell gets, again, like lower league, Premier League games and some cup games and stuff at left back in the left side of the defence and maybe doing some of that byliney stuff as and when we need it. Christopher Nkunku, I mentioned this in one of my videos before, doesn't really contribute to the game as much as you'd like him to, but at the end of the day, you can rely on him for a goal. Do you know what I mean? So Christopher Nkunku might become our Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Do you know what I mean? We bring him on when we're desperate and we've got 20 minutes left and we need someone who might get a goal. You can kind of rely on Christopher Nkunku for that. But it's just a bit of a mess, isn't it, man? Like, how did we get to this point with all the loans? Like, what are we doing? Buying Mamadou Sarr from Strasbourg and then loaning him straight back? Like, what was even the point in that, man? Was it to, we needed to make money for the UEFA stuff. Maybe it was more for Strasbourg so they could get some money on the books and make some of their own moves and stuff. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like looking back at that, should have just left him there. Do you know what I mean? We absolutely should have just left him there. I think he played one game in the Club World Cup, do you know what I mean? Got brought on or played one game in the Club World Cup and that was it. And then it was like, right, back off to Strasbourg with you. So yeah, that seems a bit silly now, doesn't it? Because we've just used up that loan spot. So yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at with it, man. It's all just a bit of a nightmare, isn't it? Nicolas Jackson is just causing us problems, but it's problems of our own design. Because if we'd have been more realistic at the start of the window and not been like, 100 million, 80 million, and we were like, all right, okay, let's talk about 60 and then see where we can get with add-ons, which is reasonably what he's worth, which based on his amortization drop is probably still nearly double what we bought him for. Do you know what I mean? In terms of the profit we'll make on him, based on what he's worth now, sorry. Do you know what I mean? We've just backed ourselves into this Nicolas Jackson shaped corner, haven't we? Where everyone wants him, no one wants to pay for him. Similar to Christopher Nkunku, but he's worth a lot less, so that's a bit savage for Christopher Nkunku, really. I was fairly confident we'd get 40 to 50 mil for Christopher Nkunku and people wouldn't really balk at that price, but they absolutely have been. We've talked to Red Bull Leipzig, we've talked to Aston Villa, we've talked to Bayern Munich, and most of the teams that are in for Jackson as well, actually, funnily enough. So what are you going to do, man? What are you going to do? So what this does also lead me on to is the little bit of news about Tyreque George, right? So Tyreque George, we've been, there's been talks about Tyreque George for a little while. He was looking a bit off in pre-season and, probably thought his number was up because this Garnacho noise has been going on for so long. Thanks for that, Fabrizio Romano, by the way. I hope this thing just happens soon, man. But at the end of the day, Tyreque George wants to go and get game time. He probably would like to have stayed at Chelsea, but he realises he's just not going to get to play. He said, I'd like to go to the Bundesliga. So there was lots of chats about Red Bull Leipzig and he was maybe going to be included in the Nkunku deal. I think Dortmund mentioned something about it at one point, but what is happening right now is Tyrique George is in the flows of the conversation with AS Roma from Italy, right? So that seems like a good move for Tyrique George, don't get me wrong. Again, I've already said this before. I thought maybe 15 mil, maybe 20 mil for Tyrique George with a bit of a sell-on clause or wicked. But I think we might be accidentally pricing ourselves out of a move again, which we really, really shouldn't do, man. Really, really shouldn't do. Maybe get a buyback clause in or lower the amount for the sell-on clause or something. I don't know. But apparently what we want for Tyrique George is 30 mil and a 30% sell-on clause as well. Like, don't get me wrong, these big sell-on clauses are a great idea, but when we're scrabbling around at this point in the window, Tyrique George is 100% an easy way to make money. And at the end of the day, I said this in the stream yesterday, I don't want to see Tyrique George go, but I just understand he's not going to get any game time. And also in the wings, there's Genesis Antwi and there's Reggie Walsh, and in a year's time, they will be the new Tyreek George, and in a year's time we'll be looking at Genesis Antwi and Tyreek George in exactly the same way, and not Tyreek George, sorry, and Reggie Walsh in exactly the same way, and people will be coming in for them wanting to, and we'll be like, we want 20 mil and a 50% sell-on clause or whatever. This is just going to be a rotating thing now, I think. Do you know what I mean? We need to have a spot available for an academy player or two in the team, so we can drive their value up. People come in, pay big money for them. That is 100% part of the project, right? That is definitely just what Blue Co are looking to do with a lot of these young players. So I understand the need for Tyreek George to go out, and it alone is just not going to happen because, again, we've got no loan spots left. They're all gone, bar one. And the safe, smart money says Sterling's probably the best spot for that, because he seems like the only player of the 4 bomb squad players that we've got that we really don't want to keep around. Like I say, I went through it earlier, man. Like all of the 4 players that we've got, Sterling's the only one that I can't really see any room for. So what we don't want to do now is keep Tyreek George and put him in that bomb squad as well, when he could go out, develop, be a really good player. If we do put a sell-on clause in there and he gets another big move in the future, then that's free money waiting to happen. Do you know what I mean? So don't price yourself out of a move now. AS Roma, Italian clubs in general, man, not really massively flush. Do you know what I mean? Not exactly got change rolling around in their pockets. And I did see something else. We talked about it on the stream yesterday about potentially Napoli being interested in Nicolas Jackson, and I'm sure they are interested because obviously they've just lost Lukaku. But interested or not, they're just not gonna pony up for the money we want. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I think the best thing to do for Tyreek George, not even just as like, I want to keep him or whatever, I want to loan him. I think the best thing for Tyreek George is to sell him. I think for that point in where he is in his career, he could go out and start, playing well, get comfortable in a team, feel wanted, feel needed, and go out and do really well. Do you know what I mean? I would personally prefer a buyback clause to a sell-on clause, because if he goes out to Italy or Germany and has an amazing season or two, and Jamie Gittins or potentially Alejandro Garnacho aren't looking up to snuff, then you buy him back for cheap, don't you? And you make that money back on selling one of the other aforementioned 2 wingers that I just said. So shame about Tyreek George, but I just, like I say, man, 15 to 20 mil seems reasonable. 30 mil is silly. Do you know what I mean? It's just silly, man. It's absolutely silly. You got to think we sold like Renato Vega for that. Do you know what I mean? And he was playing for, like every game for Juventus for the last 6 months of last season. You can't sell Tyreek George for 30 mil based on what, like, 10 appearances. Do you know what I mean? It's just silly, isn't it? And it's not good for him either, man. It's not good for him. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. The Fermin Lopez stuff does seem to be, there seems to be a little bit of clout to it, despite what Fabrizio Romano says. Go and check out my earlier video, man. Go and check out my earlier video about the Battle of the Journos. But yeah, so Fermin Lopez looks like potentially an option, but again, that's, it's not looking great now, because apparently Barcelona rumours have come out that Barcelona would be interested in 70 million euros for that sale. We went in with the idea of 50 to, it's all testing the water at the moment. Bids aren't being made. The clubs aren't talking to each other. This is just like, this person knows this person and this all comes out in the media or whatever. But yeah, Chelsea, and I think it was David Ornstein that said 50 million would be like a reason, what Chelsea would be looking at paying, which is like 38 million quid, man, which is really good. That's less than we pay for Cole Palmer. So if that one can go through and we can get Fermin Lopez for 38 million, totally down for that. If it's 70 million, then that's the same problem we've got with Xavi Simons, and we're going to have to sell people first. So that one's just a bit of a nightmare. Another little interesting tidbit that is coming today. Sorry, I left this one quite late in the video because I did put it in the thumbnail. Apparently Tottenham are interested in hijacking the Xavi Simons deal, and that does make sense. Do you know what I mean? Just when the background football narrative all starts to come together. They were hijacked for Eze. They're looking for a centre attacking midfielder who can play on that left side as well. That's exactly what Xavi Simons is. That's exactly what Fermin Lopez is. They were willing to spend that 60, 70 mil on Eze. And you got to think, even if Xavi Simons isn't as good as Eze is right now, he's like 6 years younger than him. Do you know what I mean? So, you trade off talent for potential, didn't you, at the end of the day? And Xavi Simons could become that really, really good player. Well, what we're not hearing anymore is Xavi Simons only wants Chelsea, do you know what I mean? Because all of a sudden the game's changing. It's the last few days of the window and things are starting to get crazy. That'd be a shame, man. I've done a lot of looking into Xavi Simons since the month that all the news has been going on. Do you know what I mean? It feels like it's been forever now. But what will be. If he goes to Spurs, he goes to Spurs. If we get Fermin Lopez, wicked. If, like I say, I wouldn't even be upset if we keep Jackson And João Pedro gets more time in the number 10 as well as playing up top. And, Nicolas Jackson finally gets some competition. A lot of it because he didn't have any, and then he'd have 2 extra people going for that spot. So we'll just have to see what happens, man. At the end of the day, what I don't know is how Jackson's relationship is with Maresca and stuff. Do you know what I mean? That's where things start to get a little bit complicated, isn't it? You don't know how things are and how salvageable are these relationships. Potentially it was the same with Renato Vega and Maresca as well. And, obviously Jackson's kind of just been ousted from the team since that last red card, man, hasn't he? I know obviously he was, unavailable for the first game of the Premier League anyway, but he's been in the bomb squad and there's been so many sale talks about him for the whole thing. It's really obvious that we've been trying to look to get him out. Do you know what I mean? So guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. A bit of a crazy one. I'm going to try and do 2 videos a day over the next few days because you can guarantee there's going to be lots of little things to talk about. I hope you guys are having an absolutely wicked day and I cannot wait to catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.